Good morning, Eagles View Academy. Been a little while since I got up here on YouTube, but I just wanted to go through some of the things you've been working on this week. Uh, y'all been working through, well, we finished up some Emily Dickinson, and then we started looking at Oliver Wendell Holmes' Old Ironsides poem. And I had you watch a documentary on the Navy website going through that. And so I'm just going to hit a couple of those real quick, and obviously I'll be looking at the stuff you submitted in more detail, but the Old Ironsides that was originally built in Boston, that was question number 3. The first time it launched, it only made it 27 feet, which is interesting because the ship's keel is 150 feet. Ironically, or maybe not ironically, but interestingly, number 6, the captain responsible for optimizing the performance of Old Ironside was Captain Isaac Hull, like the hull of a boat. I thought that was interesting. If you laid all the sails together, number 13, it would cover an acre. So a lot of interesting things about this boat. But looking at the poem specifically, I wanted to go over a couple of these for you so you can be studying these as we prepare for your next assessment on this kind of stuff. Before I go into Old Ironsides really quickly, I've got most of your papers graded. I think I have 3 more research papers to go through and make sure they're where they need to be. Your feedback will be on Turnitin, so you won't find it on the student portal. I'll be putting your grade on the student portal, obviously, because that's where it has to go. But if you go to Turnitin and pull up your paper, you'll see I've put comments. I've made some grammatical corrections, usually primarily on the first page, and then I'll expect you to just kind of learn the rule and apply it after that. A couple common things to keep in mind. Remember, this is a research paper, not a research report. So if you're only really giving me information and you're not making an argument, you're actually doing a different assignment. So make sure there is an argument you are trying to prove. Had a few papers that way, so you want to make some corrections there. Some formatting stuff. Remember, it's MLA format, so that means double space, 1-inch margins, all that kind of stuff. In the video I gave you guys last Monday, so go and check out that video if you didn't format it correctly. Make sure you have a works cited page. Make sure it's alphabetical order. Make sure you have everything you need for that as well. Make sure that you're not using first or second person in the paper. So this is a research paper. You're incorporating sources to back up your information, and you don't need to say, I believe this, or I think this, or this paper will prove. That's called telegraphing in writer lingo. Don't do that. Also, leave the word you out. So don't say, we do this because you are going to do this, or you're going to do that. If you're talking to the reader directly, that might come off as a little bit confrontational, and they might get a little defensive. And a lot of times when you say you really don't mean you mean some sort of noun. So just tell me the noun instead. If you is supposed to mean readers, if you're supposed to mean voters, if you is supposed to mean adherence of the Second Amendment, citizens, whatever, tell us what that is. Don't say you. Take out the yous, the yours, definitely take out the y'alls, all that kind of stuff. Okay, watch your commas. There is some typographical stuff here that will cost you points, so make sure you are checking those as well. I'm not going to go through and find everyone for you. It's kind of your job, but I will point out a few if you're missing a rule, and then you can go through and reread afterward. Remember to continue working on these. You have till May 12th, so a little over 2 weeks to revise these based off my feedback. And your feedback, remember, when you submitted your first draft, I told you I'm going to grade it just like your final draft. So I'm expecting 6 pages, top to bottom, not 5.5 pages, and a works cited page. So if your first draft you submitted only 3 pages or 4 pages, then you got an incomplete, because if I was grading the final draft, that's the grade it would have gotten. So you'll still have feedback there, but your score is a score you'll get on your final draft right now. That gives you one perk, that if you like your score and want to be done, then you can be done. I have had at least one student break that A threshold, so they're done with the paper. And I have a few others that are really close. Had 2 or 3 papers, really good arguments, but there was just a little bit too much grammatical issue, some sloppy typos and stuff. And you know who you are. If you go and fix those, you'll have an A paper and be done. But be working on those. You have 3 weeks. That'll be the bulk of your last week of the semester for sure, but definitely want to give it time, so you don't want to all have it compiling in the end. So remember, we started this in January. I suggested space it out. This is why we want to space it out. Not that we were anticipating online classes, but we still got other things to do. So keep working on that little by little. Today you're working on SSR, so get a little bit of a breather, and I will get your feedback to you. Let's talk about Old Ironsides really quick. Looking at the poem itself, the first question was, how is the first line of this poem ironic? And it's ironic because the first line says, let's tear down the flag, which is actually the opposite of what he wants to do. He's writing this poem to try and save the ship. 2, what is the meteor of the ocean air? Well, that's a cannonball. 3, the first stanza, basically, and now this is your own word, so you're not going to have this word for word, but basically the ship's flag has waved for so long, and soldiers were so happy to see it waving. Battles have happened underneath this flag. However, now the cannonballs will not be flying anymore because we're not going to be shooting the cannon. Number 4, who might the harpies be? Well, and this is line 15 and 16. And then what is the eagle of the sea? And we got to explain that metaphor. Well, harpies are those who want to scrap the ship. The eagle is the ship. If any English students are tuning in, well, you've looked at something from talking about "Oh Captain, My Captain" by Walt Whitman. They also use ship metaphors, all that kind of stuff. But that's by the way. Anyway, these people will pluck the ship, meaning that they will use parts of it for other purposes, like plucking feathers, or it could mean they will pluck it from taking it out of the water, like plucking it out of the sea. So that metaphor. Number 5, sum up the second stanza. So, summaries. And again, you won't have this word for word probably, but the second stanza basically said, heroes fought aboard this ship and defeated enemies there. However, this ship is not going to be a part of victories because those wanting to scrap the ship, the harpies, will destroy the ship. Again, the evil of the sea. Number 6, what does he suggest to do instead of scrapping the ship? Well, out of respect, burial at sea. Let it sink to the bottom of the sea out of respect. Let it rest where it was doing most of its fighting. That kind of idea. Third stanza, one more summary. It's better to sink the ship in the sea where she fought than to let that be her grave. Sorry, let's start that over again. It's better to sink the ship in the sea where she fought and let that be her grave than the alternative. Nail the flag to the mast and give it to the stormy sea. Kind of like a Viking funeral. All right, and then number 8, looking back over the poem, what events have taken place on the ship according to the speaker? Well, a lot of things happen. There's been shedding of blood. There's been defeating of enemies. There's been people who've danced at the side of this flag, and obviously cannons going off. So there's just a few of those things. Okay. So Wednesday you picked a cause that you would like to write about, and yesterday you submitted a poem. I'll take a look at those and see where we're going with your poems for fighting different causes. But in the meantime, enjoy your SSR today and make sure you got the notes corrected if any of that Old Ironside stuff I went through was incorrect, and continue working on the research paper. Said that is your major grade. And one more note on the research paper: if you don't like your current grade, remember your final draft goes in place of this. So if you turned it in on time and you got, say, a 60, we'll put it on the pessimist side. So you got a 60 or a 50 or worse, whatever. Well, your final draft's going in place of that. So whatever you have now is not going to stay as long as you submit a final draft. So if you turn in, let's say you turned in a paper and it was like, there's barely even a complete sentence, and I didn't have any this bad, but say you got a 10, but your final draft would earn a 100. Well, that goes in place for both. So the draft functions like a draft, but I've got to grade it based off its characteristics and what the qualifications of the assignment are. So give it a good effort. Look at the revisions. If you don't like your grade, look at my feedback, see how you can correct it. And obviously, you can send me questions if you are unsure if you're making a correction right. And I can take a look at a passage and give you some guidance there. All right, guys. Not exactly good seeing you again because, I don't see you, but, we'll continue on. We're about halfway through. Progress reports go out today, so we're halfway there. Y'all have a good weekend, guys.